Hello and welcome to Rauta. I am Jerry and this time I'm about to go through the letter D in my record collection. I realize it's been quite some time since the previous episode and there's a couple of reasons why the letter D was so much delayed after the initial letters A, B and C. First of all, it seems like I have so much more D's than some of the previous letters, and also because of other listening projects. So, couple of reasons, and somehow I didn't find myself listening too much of my own CDs while doing some other projects which you might have noticed on the channel, including the Finnish black metal history series as well as certain retrospectives. Now, these are my excuses. You don't really have to care about them. So let's go and see what I have in stock. Now, while this might not look like a big batch of albums I'm going to show to you, it still showcases that letter D is more common than some other letters, and as such, I guess with letters like S, it's going to be more used, and you will see easily why. Now, there are some weird, holes in my collection, because I don't really consider it a collection. And that's why there's some like, why do you have only one album by that band or two bands by that album? You should have more. Or why these certain albums? We'll get into that as we progress with the letters. So this is sometimes a little bit random when you ask me about it, but every album obviously has a story, and mine is not very interesting one, but I'll try to guide you through without making this video too lengthy. The first album in my letter D is one of the best demo bands ever come to Finland, the Decade. This is 3 songs only, and unfortunately this band, Decade, horrible name by the way, never made actually much beyond this one. But this is, in my opinion, some 5-star heavy metal, and with, great vocalist and great songwriting, even if not something out of ordinary style-wise, was something that I hope to break big. Never made it, unfortunately, but one of the reasons why I have these kind of weird exceptions to the letter. Then Danzig, and then album 4 is my special Danzig thing. Now, I was never a Danzig fan by, the very, very definition. But back in like 1995, I saw them live, and it was around this era when they were playing. I even got a shirt, which I later on sold to a friend of mine who was a Danzig fan. And this album made a big impact. Now, back in the days, I have heard only the first 4 albums or so. And I remember number 1 and 2 were quite good. Third, I have no recollection whatsoever, and I don't even know why. But 4 made the wow element. Partially because of, a video song, which is on this album, I Don't Mind the Pain, a great song. And that's very much the story of this. It was something in the mid-90s that, whoa, mind blown. But somehow I never made it to, being a real Danzig fan, and some of the later material I heard wasn't really my cup of tea. So, for whatever reasons unknown, this is the only one I have for that story to be told. Then, because I'm also a video game and a certain movie nerd, and I like music from the movies and games, I have these soundtracks which sometimes pop up in my videos like this. For some reason, this is the only one from the Nolan Batman movie series, The Dark Knight Rises. A great soundtrack, which I guess kind of reminds me I should probably have them more, but like I said, sometimes you end up buying something and later on you kind of forget to come to that later on. But yeah, great soundtrack, maybe even better than the actual movie, and I like the Nolan Batman trilogy. And then I think there is a third one here somewhere. Let me see, because no, yep. So these 2, Dark Space 1 and 2, these made to my record collection back in the days. I guess for the reason that there was some kind of a dark ambience combining the new wave of atmospheric black metal. I don't know if there's actually different waves for atmospheric black metal, but let's be honest about it, these don't really sound like Burzum, so it was kind of new wave versus that stuff, and it doesn't really sound like it's a lot of those nature-inspired atmospheric black metal ones, but something way more darker, actually like flying into the space and seeing nothing but darkness and maybe stars here and there. So Dark Space has a special thing for me, and I was really happy to see them live. last year. Now I have to figure out how did I put these CDs here so they will be in some way or another being more alphabetical order. This time I'm gonna skip you a whole band with a bunch of Dark Thrones. These are obviously in alphabetical order, so here they are: Under a Funeral Moon, Transylvanian Hunger, Total Death, what is The Cult is Alive, Sardonic Wrath, Panzerfaust, Hate Them, and A Blaze in the Northern Sky. Why these in particular? First of all, I am not a big fan of the debut album. I mean, it's decent death metal, old school and all, but it was A Blaze that really made Dark Throne, like, oh, this is the band I love. And pretty much after the third era of Dark Throne, if you consider the first era was the death metal one, then you had with the Under a Funeral Moons and Transylvanian Hungers. Mind you, these are the very toxic old ones, with comments and all. Let that sink in for a bit. So after the third era, which I would say roughly started with the albums like Sardonic Wrath and The Cult is Alive, basically after Panzerfaust. Now, I was very much into that stuff. But as you can see, I don't have Ravishing Grimness anymore here. I kind of got rid of that and all. But I don't know, there's something that with that album, I mean, it's good, but not that good. However, in my opinion, Dark Throne kind of made a little bit curve back up after Ravishing Grimness and whatever the follow-up was. Now I'm like forgetting it. Anyway, for a couple of albums, Sardonic Wrath, The Cult is Alive, etc., I was like, there, yeah, this is the era. Hate Them included. And then it started fading again and more going into some kind of a proto-black kind of a thing, which wasn't really my cup of anymore. And while there are certain better releases later on, all these Circle the Wagons and whatever, they made their impact back in the days, but really, I don't need them all. So there is the story, and this is why I have only this amount of Dark Thrones, not like all of them. And yet, with this amount of black metal albums by Dark Throne, it's easily the best black metal band for me all time. Not to mention it has 2 out of 10 albums, which is more than any other black metal band in the world. Then some weird one-trick thingies here for my collection. Dawn, Slaughter Sun, one of the best melodic black metal albums ever from Sweden. Just great tunes, great melodies, very catchy, very powerful atmospheric parts. It's so much better than anything else by the band. And some of the curious ones are Dead, with a question mark. Kind of unknown band, but this band's black metal is actually way better than it's given credit to. Maybe some kind of a missed gem. I mean, when I was going through this, pile before making this video, obviously I wanted to get kind of get rid of the albums that I don't want to keep. I don't need to keep anymore. So I was kind of like second guessing all the choices, and that's why it took some time. It's not like I just decided to take all the D's here and show them to you, and then later on figure out, oh, this doesn't really belong to my collection. So I was kind of positively surprised I remembered correctly. Dead is a good album. Another thing is by this band, Dead to This World. Not a great name for a band, but this Norwegian Miss Gem made waves in my head back in the days. It features, especially nowadays, when you look at the lineup and all, some people who are actually quite known for their work in Norwegian black metal scene and all, and as such, it isn't really surprising it's that good, but yeah, sometimes things happen. Now I wonder where on earth I put this one album, which, oh, there it is. Okay, so like I said, this pile is a little bit of a mess. These are so many D's. Then, one of my all-time favorite bands, Death, the best death metal band of all times for me. I was almost ready to give up with The Sound of Perseverance, which I consider the weakest of them all, but it's so good I still have to keep it. Symbolic, one of my favorite 10 out of 10 albums. Obviously, the older Death albums are must-have for me, including Scream Bloody Gore, which is almost 10 out of 10, one of the best ever, including also Leprosy. Then I have this other least favorite Death album, Individual Thought Patterns, which I originally didn't want to even get, but is a grower, and then Human. So Death is one of the very, very few bands I have all the mandatory albums from the discography. Now, never been exactly a Deathspell Omega fan, but there is an era of Deathspell Omega that made the waves. It's including the Clandestine Blaze split, which I guess is the reason why Mr. Clandestine Blaze Mikospa ended up being the vocalist of Dead Spell Omega later on. And then these two ones, Inquisitors of Satan and Infernal Battles. Now, technical speaking, you would go, the other one isn't really an album, it's a demo collection. Either way, it was released as an album, and as such, these three, being raw end of Dead Spell Omega, are my favorites from the band. And never made so much with the newer ones. I guess they just went too much third wave of black metal, which kind of let me out of the wagon. Debauchery is one of those black metal names that I guess a lot of people, missed, and as such, I feel it's kind of underrated. Dead Scream Symphony, while nothing actually outstanding, this one is one solid release and can't get rid of that. And when I was talking about the peculiar names, D-side, well, I only have like one or two D-side. I think I have something on the vinyl, or was it on my shopping list? Anyway, this is one of my favorite D-side albums. And yes, I have heard the old ones. Somehow this made more impact than, say, the first two ones. Yeah, it might seem outrageous to some people, but what can I say? Matters of taste. But D-side is the one of the names. I probably should have more D-sides, but I don't know. I was a late bloomer when it comes to D-side, and I don't even know why. Maybe because I didn't hear it back in the 90s. It was or very late 90s or very early 2000s, maybe late 90s when I got to hear it, but I didn't listen to it, enough. So I was kind of late bloomer to D-side, and yeah, I haven't been really buying albums past few years. Then I have a couple of favorites from Quebec area, Canada, Deletier. And this is the kind of melodic black metal which makes the exception. There are lots of melodic black metal bands which I really don't like because they're too uplifting, too happy, or I don't know, just too medieval sounding. Deletier is one of the exceptions which I really like because they make it right. They make it sound like there's a meaning to it. There's a level of catchiness and yet still a certain level of grimness. So melodic black metal done right. One of my skeletons in the closet, if I had one, would be Depeche Mode, my favorite pop music band. Unfortunately, I still don't have much more than this collection, which was supposed to be my stepping stone to the world of Depeche Mode, and then these two albums, Violator and Ultra. And I have been actually pondering I should buy more Depeche Mode's CDs for my collection, but like I said, when review albums keep you busy, you kind of forget to do that. But sometimes I just listen to it on streaming services, so consider me a fan, even if not hardcore fan. One of my favorite ZDR gems in my collection is Deather, underground dark ambient act that didn't make much, and even this is a CDR official, so but still. Don't really like the format, but it's good, and you probably won't end up finding it in streaming services, so better have it in a format you can listen to when you feel like that. Then one of my favorite death metal acts from Sweden is Deranged, and this is my favorite era. Obscenities in B-flat, Plainfield, Cemetery, and this Red Light Murder case. This is the brutalest kind of stuff. Basically like, I'm thinking, the other bands. Going off my head. Anyway, the kind of brutality that only a few, Vomitory. So only a few bands from Sweden actually went to the brutal end of death metal. So many bands were more like Entombed and Dismember, had the kind of grooviness and old school vibe, and nothing wrong with that. But when you wanted something more extra brutal from Sweden, yet not sounding really USA, Deranged is one of those kinds. And I really, really like that stuff. It's still so goddamn violent. It's almost like, I don't know, in a way, Swedish Cannibal Corpse. So different, but still. Then some other weird exceptions to the rule are Disaster. It's a band that probably should have more albums by this good German act. What started more into kind of a melodic black metal with the debut album, and which I had, but I sold it away years ago. Turned into something way more different with Hellfire's Dominion, and later on, one of the best one is Divine Blasphemous, which is more black thrash. While not exactly Au Noir or Absu in the craziness, I gotta say, I like their energy. They do have other albums, and once again, one of the bands I probably should have more albums, but For some reason, I don't. Some dark ambient things. Desideri Marginis, Seven Sorrows. Good stuff for those who really like dark ambient and don't want to count on it being found on streaming services. Then one of the best bands operating around doom and death metal, very, very dark music, is Desolate Shrine. There's no weak album by this band, but not every album is equal. These are probably the best. So if you want some heavy and dark doom death, this is the band to go to. Then I'll get a bunch of CDs by my favorite Australian band. It's not AC/DC, but Destroyer 666. And this MCD, Violence is a Prince of This World, got me going back in the days, which led me leading this one with a friend, Unchain the Wolves, and suddenly here we are, really liking the bands. Now, all the later releases are something that I really like, and Terror Abraxas is one of the best MCDs ever. Phoenix Rising and their latest album are not among the best, but here it is, Defiance. This is probably their least, appreciated album, but Defiance is the one that rocked my socks off almost like 20 years ago when it came out. And then Cold Steel for Iron Age, one of the better albums by this band. So you see me missing at least one album. I do have some on vinyl, but the one album that I didn't get, Wildfire, is something that I didn't like too much when it came out, but later on I started wondering I probably should have that one as well. So, indeed, my favorite Australian band. One of the underrated, in my opinion, but good black metal bands from Finland is Diaboli. Not every album is, once again, equal. The later era, I don't know, kind of shifted away a little bit of their best, but overall, very consistent, good band. These are the 5 albums I still have in my collection, including a couple of the early albums and some later ones. And I guess my favorite is still the Anthems of Sorrow, which is, in a way, very, very sorrowful albums. But all in all, good energy with the kind of a grim black metal from Finland, Diaboli. Which leads us to another band with almost similar name. Not that similar, but still. Diabolical Masquerade, which I featured a couple of years ago in my worst to best ranking video for the band. This is mostly known for the kind of a Catatonia spin-off or side project by Mr. Blackheim. This is a band that I started liking with the first album when it came out, Raven Dusk in My Heart, and the following albums just made a big impact in me, which means I still need to have all of the 4 albums by the given project. If you want to know more about it, check out my, rating video. Then there are some weird ones, which shouldn't even be in my normal collection, but here it is. I'm gonna show it before I stash it elsewhere. Diabolical Torture. This is here only because of my own band. Nightside was in this collection. This is from 1999, and back in the days, this song was unreleased before it got out on the album. So that's why it's my collection. A rare Israeli band, if I remember correctly, the home is Dim Aura, released back in the days by a Finnish small, now extinct label. And this made some good black metal. I was kind of hoping the band to come back, but I don't know. Nothing hasn't been heard from the band. Dimmu Borgir's, in my opinion, best album is probably the album a lot of people hate the most. Ionian doesn't really even sound like a typical Dimmu Borgir album, and that's exactly why I like it. It's more almost like if Dimmu Borgir wanted to do Therion, that's what would they do. And one of the better albums from last year made it to my collection quite recently, Disarray, playing proper thrash metal, and as such, man, can't really have too many good thrash albums, so there it is. And one of my all-time black metal favorites come from Sweden, Dissection Storm of the Light Spain. As you can see, this is pretty worn out, old digipack from 1995, I guess. I remember it must have been 1995 or 1996 at latest. Beautiful Nuclear Blast digipack back in the days. I did have the debut album and the mini CD, which came around this era, but I loaned to my friend, or borrowed to my friend so many years ago, and never got it back, so that's why I only have this one. Then another interesting side project featuring Norwegian and Finnish people as well as other people is Dødsvanger, has Nordjævel vocalist, for example, Shatterout from Horna and Sargeist doing guitars, and other people. Good black metal with a kind of modern touch, yet still sounding somewhat different than Shatterout's other project. And one of my more modern thrash metal favorites comes from Sweden, Dr. Living Dead. I only have these two because I was a late bloomer to find this band. So while they do have, if I remember correctly, 4 albums, I have only managed to get a couple of these in my collection. As you can see, they're quite worn out, or at least a little bit. And at least the other one was gotten second hand. The other one was probably a promotional copy. So I'm still like, I need to update it because it's really, really great crossover thrash. And towards the end we go, talking about soundtracks. Francis Ford Coppola's great Dracula movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula, is here with a good soundtrack. Very horror music-like and very gloomy, doomy atmosphere, almost like a black metal in a way of doing soundtrack. Then again, you could say it's also a little bit funeral doom-like. And then, last but not least, is an interesting black metal project. I have 2 CDs of Drawn into Descent. These are something that I both got for review at some point, and I love them. It's more into the kind of, I guess, depressive, suicidal black metal genre rather than anything else. Or you could say atmospheric black metal. But the kind of that stuff that, clicks me with the right way. So, managed to make into my collection and all. Now, I guess a lot of people are asking, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? Why did you choose that to be in your collection? Well, matters of taste. I do not expect you to understand my matters of taste. I sometimes don't even understand myself. Why do I like certain bands and why I don't like this and that? For example, the D-side question could be asked, why do you like that album more, Legion? Or why don't you do this and that? I honestly don't know. Like with the Danzig gates, it's clear. Back in the days, it was just Danzig moment, the right time, the right collection with the right friends. Why don't you have more? I don't know. Maybe I just forgot to listen to Danzig. Maybe I didn't have friends who were like pushing those Danzig CDs or whatever to me. Because back in the days, we lived the era of tapes and CDs, not so much vinyl. And when I started doing, reviews around 2002, then I was suddenly bombarded with so many review albums that I kind of even forgot to buy certain CDs at some point. And yeah, there's no more interesting story to do about that. But I know some people were asking, like, what do I have in my record collection? So this is part of it. This is the letter D. And next up is E. As you can see, the first one on my shelf to be, hopefully in this list, is Elder One. And like I said, I will be listening to these albums before making the video. So if there's something I don't want to keep, I'm not going to even include it in the video if it goes to my to be sold list. So we'll see about that. Sorry for a long video, but it needs a little bit explaining why do I have this and that and what kind of music they make. Now, should you have comments or questions about the collections or whatever in your mind, just drop me in the line in the comment box and I'll get back to you. Now off you go, listen to some good stuff, and I hope you find some ideas what to listen next in case you're wondering. Cheers, off you go.